Traffic was frozen, drivers watching the students collect on Telegraph Avenue. She left the curb, threading between the cars. He followed, coming up to her on the far side. "You'll find your way," she'd said. It was true, Sam thought. He was lost, and it was visible to a total stranger.
Fucking
But the
hippies.
moment they'd shared, there was more to it than that. They'd had some kind of understanding. He couldn't divine its source, but he could feel it. She was watching him out of the corner of her eye. "Can I call you?" he said. She recoiled as if his eyes were flames that might burn her. Then she nodded. The crowd was thick with coughing students. Demonstrators with black armbands were arguing with police in blue jumpsuits.
The way the sunlight glinted off the mucus was so romantic.
Sam felt in his pocket and found a pen. "I don't have anything to write on." She shook her head. Neither did she. A group of protesters barged up Telegraph, shouting and forting. I've written things on my own hand, like if I needed to get someone's number in the club back in the day.
I've done that.
It's 1969. Go back into the fucking restaurant and get a book of matches.
Yeah.
A group of protesters barged up Telegraph, shouting and forcing people off the curb. She was sideswiped, elbowed into the crowd. Sam lunged, circled her with his arm, and pulled her across the sidewalk into the corner smoke shop.
This writing is unbearable. Oh my God, these sentences.
He reached for a magazine with white on the cover, put $1 on the counter, and turned back, handing the pen and magazine over without looking at her. She wrote her name down and was halfway through her number when she stopped and raised her eyes.
I want to die.
As if she was unsure that what she'd seen was really there. He gazed at her, full in the face, and the power that leapt between them made the pinpoint tear the cover. She tightened her grip and completed the number.
Why don't they just do it in the road?
Why don't we do it in the road?
He pushed the door open and they stepped back into the crowd. She handed him the magazine and pen. "I'm Sam," he said. "Hello, Sam." She smiled, fear edging her eyes.
"I'm Sam, this is Frodo."
That's always a good sign. We've met. We've had our meet cute, which involves tear gas.
Yeah, as they do.
And now you're smiling with fear in your eyes because I asked for your number.
Yeah, this is a healthy foundation for a relationship.
Then she turned and started across Telegraph. Sam stood watching. At the peak of her stride, she seemed to glide, as if gravity had lost control of her. His heart was thumping.
She immediately shot through the roof from the inertia.
She started floating uncontrollably. Sam leapt and grabbed onto her shoes, trying to keep her from floating off into outer space.
That would be a wildly more
I've just
interesting
made
book.
this book better.
Hell yeah.
And then an alien popped out of her chest. Boom!
I thought it might be interesting if you were having a story like this,
Yeah.
and it's lucid and it's going along, and then things start getting weird and wild, because at some point in like the near future, the character that is recounting the moment that we are currently in takes some kind of drug which muddles the memory that we are experiencing now, leading up to the point where they take the drug.
Oh, that'd be interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I could see that being done well if done well.
Yeah. You
This
can
isn't
do
it.
fun things with unreliable narrators like that, but I hate this.
Joe, I wish I had the same rhythmic sense that you do, because like the rhythm doesn't bother me. I don't know why.
Feels like every sentence now just feels like getting hit in the head with a hammer.
Yeah,
I hate the way it sounds. It's so droning and horrible, and it's really making me angry.
I've had you try to explain this to me because I was afraid that my own writing has it, and I just can't comprehend like what you're going through. I think it's because you're more musically attuned than I am.
Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting because I'm not. Maybe it's because I'm reading it.
It could be that you're reading it, and because I'm hearing.
But I'm not picking up on that in this book as much. And I honestly think that for all its weaknesses, and they are already many, the prose isn't necessarily one of them. There are some, at the very least, his use of language, like use of metaphor, and
It's not painful.
Yeah.
there's some interesting symbolism being done. It's not polished prose, but it's not bad for its roughness.
We've read much worse books.
Much worse. Much worse.
It's just the barrage of short sentences
Sure, yeah.
is so obnoxious to me. I hate it. I know how Kaine feels like most of the time when we record this show.
Good. You should have to feel this now.
Sam stood watching. At the peak of her stride, she seemed to glide as if gravity had lost control of her. His heart was thumping. He looked at the magazine. Alaska Sportsman.
Okay, ask one.
The white on the cover was a ram with golden horns standing on a mountain precipice.
It was then I knew that my fursona was a ram.
Lindy and a phone number were written across the animal's chest. Sam's finger felt where the pen had cut, imagining the tension in her hand. When he looked up, he saw Josh Schumann moving toward him, quivering with emotion and shaking his head, a black armband around his sleeve. In the wake of the attack on the campus and his unexpected encounter, Sam was glad to see a familiar face. Even so, he coiled the magazine. Josh jabbed Sam's shoulder and snarled at the guards. Pigs! Sam grinned. Josh's rancor vanished, and he laughed like a 5-year-old, bangs jumping on his forehead, his grown-up eyes trapped between them. You got gassed. Josh noticed Sam's swollen lids. Sam nodded, wide-eyed, suggesting something unworldly. What was it like? Josh wondered, playing along.
It sucked.
I was in the cloud, Sam spoke like a prophet. I reached out, and an angel came down. Josh saw Sam's longing. Some chick, he guessed. Sam nodded. Sad, but wise. She's going to stay with me. It's about time, Josh said. Across the street, 2 policemen were cuffing a demonstrator over the hood of a car. Amazingly, we haven't learned anything about what Josh looks like.
Nope, just that he's tall.
No, not even
I bet
that.
he's made of poo.
Didn't we learn that he was like
We
6'5"?
learned-
or
no,
something?
that's Sam.
Sam
Right.
was 6 foot tall.
Okay.
Josh, his friend, is wearing a black armband.
Yeah.
That's what we know about him. We don't know the
Right.
color of his tights or whether his side boob is visible through his vest.
Kind of wish it was.
My personal headcanon is that Josh is the Invisible Man, and he identifies himself with a black armband, so it's just Sam talking to a black armband.
Done.
A floating
That is
black armband.
headcanon. Come on. Josh forced his way through the corner crowd and started down Telegraph, away from campus. Sam followed. They skirted a group of students huddled around a woman with a water pail and sponge. A pair of jeeps drove past with guardsmen in masks. What's going on? Sam said. It's war, and we're the enemy. They've got a tank down at the marina. What's with the armband? Vigil for Rector. We marched to the Chancellor's house. Rector?
I barely knew
Josh
him.
rolled his eyes. The guy who was killed? Sam nodded, recalling. We've got to do something.
David, stop. David, stop. I was going to make a funny quip about having a tank at the marina, and tanks can't float. Have a boat at the marina. But you just kept reading sentences, and it completely threw me off track, and I couldn't make the joke.
The rhythm of it just bashed the joke out of your head.
Yeah, it just knocked it right out of my fucking head.
I'm sorry. Sorry.
It's not your fault.
Well, now we know this book consumes humor and produces madness.
This book is like what cornflakes were meant to be.
Covered in cocaine?
You guys hear that? Whoosh. That's the thing going right over my head.
So, cornflakes were invented as an alternative to masturbation.
Wait, what?
Yeah, Kellogg, the guy that developed Kellogg's cornflakes, he also had a retreat, a health retreat, where a large part of the thing was like learning how to live without polluting your body.
With masturbation?
With anything, sex, masturbation, anything that would
Yeah.
be, sinful or not good. Any indulgence
kind of
or pleasure,
indulgence.
really, yeah.
So you went there to stop eating food? Because, your body produces a desire to eat food when you're low on something.
No, you still have to eat. That's why he made the cornflakes.
Yeah.
Because the cornflakes are
are
something
so
that
terrible
you can eat
that you can
when
eat and not enjoy
you're
it.
when you're feeling urges.
Yeah. They're just so bland that, yeah.
You just replace the urge to masturbate with a big bowl of cornflakes.
Just in case anyone who doesn't know and is listening to the podcast, masturbation's healthy. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
If you want to do it, just do it and don't worry about it.
I mean, don't do it like on the bus or in a public
Right.
place.
Much like writing, it's fine to do in the privacy of your own home and wash your hands when you're done.
Wait, what?
It was a Robert Heinlein quip.
Okay.
Talking about masturbation being much like writing. It's something that's fine to do if you're in the privacy of your own home, and just make sure to wash your hands when you're done with it.
Ah, gotcha.
Which, yeah.
Does anyone else get the feeling that we stole David from a much more intellectual podcast?
No. Being David,
Yeah,
I
no.
can...
I do like that idea, though.
I'm very aware that that's not the case.
Yeah. Fun fact that kind of ties into that. The same interview where Rich Shapiro talked about how he was waiting and waiting and waiting to get good ideas, and then he just said fuck it and wrote a book anyway. He was asked, do you have any special writing rituals? To which he replied, I like to have sex while I'm writing.
Like while?
That's what he said.
Huh.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to all of his lovers.
Yeah. He's just got a legal pad on someone's back, just long-handed.
He's writing while he's long-handing, right?
Nice. It's good.
Here's how it works. Here's the ritual. In order for him to write, and Joe, this is why his sentences are so short and blunt. Like, when he gets the climax, he writes on the back of the person he's doing with his own semen.
Oh, and then
So
just
he
like
has
hits
to-
it with a black light to transcribe it?
Yes.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah. So this happened.
I'm sorry, I'm just... that took me down like a weird Burroughs cut-up kind of...
Yeah.
I went places there. I'm sorry.
I wish we had the
welcome. You're
technology to
welcome.
capture the internal journey that you went on.
I'm just picturing David, like, his gaze goes unfocused and you see, like, a backdrop of World War II footage.
Flashback to that time I read Slaughterhouse-Five.
Mhm.
It's a meta joke.
It is.
Sam watched a girl in tie-dye pinning notices to the plywood boarded over the store's broken windows. I don't care about any of this. It's a carnival, Josh. Throwing firecrackers at Daddy.
Yeah, I don't care about any of it either, but you keep writing it.
Don't be an elitist. Sam shook his head. There's no higher view. The flower children are making yogurt, the bikers are shooting smack, and the lowbrows are sniffing glue. 50 years from now, people will look back and say, what a bunch of idiots. Well, that part's true.
Yeah.
We're all playing our part. Josh's sigh betrayed his own disheartenment. Sitting in class for 4 years, soaking up worthless information, we learned more on LSD. Any news on grad school? Josh asked. Not yet, Sam said. I got my acceptance letter yesterday. Sam stared at him. Another 5 years and I'm a professor. Josh hung his head. You're going to do it, Sam said. Probably. Sam looked away. I need the fellowship. That's a given with your fans. We'll see. You give a great lecture on Blake, Josh said. Might as well get paid for it.
Do you think I could hit myself hard enough in the skull with my microphone to just black out for a while?
I recommend copious amounts of hard liquor.
Okay, all right.
Gotta do it quick, though, like right after the podcast. Just upend the bottle.
No, like right now. You just go grab a bottle of fucking rum
Yeah,
and just empty
pound
that
it. Yeah.
motherfucker. Just grab yourself a fifth, and from breaking the seal all the way down to the bottom of the bottle. That'll get you there.
Because I want the podcast to stop.
Well, Joe, you know how to make the podcast stop. You just have to open up all the doors.
The doors of perception?
Let the internal pressure blow everything out.
What the
The doors
fuck
of
are you-
perception,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah, okay. I mean...
No, the doors of the moon base is what he's referring to.
Okay.
Yeah. But don't do that.
No.
That's why we put those blast doors in there.
Yeah, dying via vacuum would suck.
I
Yeah.
see what you did there.
That wasn't a joke, Joe. I just said that. You give me way more credit than I deserve.
Fucking idiot clown.
Also, technically, it wouldn't suck. It's
I don't know, man. Vacuums suck.
I'm out.
Womp, womp, womp.
It's up to the three of you to finish this episode. I'm going to go.
Nope, that's not how this works, Joe. You did this.
You know what? I'm
This
done.
was-
I'm leaving.
Yeah.
okay. Real quick, if there's any generous listeners out there that would donate $30, I could buy a slide whistle for moments like these. Slide whistles are weirdly expensive.
Do we want to, like, because I'm really bored of this. I kind of want to die a little bit. Do we want to fast forward to the part where he goes to Alaska and becomes a ram person for the last half hour, 40 minutes, and see if that improves things?
Let's just keep going here.
Okay, yeah.
Really? Do we have to?
Let's see if it gets to the cut and thrust of the point of chapter 1, because it just kind of
Cut and
meanders.
thrust.
The closer it looms, the odder it seems. I've always thought of school as a rehearsal, not the main event. There's always business, Josh said.
That's actually kind of a good line.
It's climbing the human pyramid either way. That's what adults do. Theo signed a recording contract last week. Sam didn't react. Maybe you should have stuck with him, Josh said. The future, Sam thought.
Who talks like this?
Josh and Sam?
I hate them.
He remembered the long nights they had wrestled with the alternatives together. It was easier a few centuries ago, Josh said. You just looked at your last name. Cutler? I'll make knives. Sam's gaze drifted eastward, into the Berkeley Hills. Carter? Josh said. I'll make carts. Sam's shoulders stiffened, like someone about to be sentenced, unjustly accused.
Dick rubber, I'll manhandle chickens.
Oh, manhandle your chickens.
Schumann? I'll make shoes. Josh laughed. Sam?
You get the point.
I'm thinking. You're not here, man. I'm looking at you. I'm talking to you, but you're not here. I'm wondering. About what? There's something beyond all this. He spoke of the waking world as if it was a wrapper. We see hints in books and music. We feel it when we're coming or when we're high, when the things that don't matter are stripped away. We can't just pick up our diplomas and forget.
You also get it if you're Arnold in the gym.
I'm going to read Catcher in the Rye while you're reading this and enjoy myself slightly more. I actually like Catcher in the Rye.
Really? I cannot stand that book.
A lot of people can't, and I understand why. I think maybe I just read it young enough that it was, I was at a point where like, oh yeah, this guy gets it. And,
Right.
And I think that's why I was able to kind of have an affection for it.
I don't know. I read the book and I remember having a period of thinking like, yeah, Holden Caulfield, I get it. I get where you're coming from. I understand all of this.
Mhm.
Absolutely. I got to the end of the book and I couldn't tell you a goddamn thing that had happened
Sure.
in that novel. Not a one. I have no idea.
And on that note,
Mhm.
there are two things that I want to say about writing. Whether you're good or bad, if you're forgettable, you're nothing.
Right.
Secondly, if you're going to have abrupt, quippy dialogue like this, that is the writer like, oh, this is how smart people talk. And if you're going to do that, make sure that your dialogue is actually like rapier wit style. It's got to actually be of the quality or it's just going to clank.
Yeah, I mean, there's something to that for sure, but you also don't want all of your dialogue to sound
Yes,
like it was scripted.
absolutely.
Yeah.
People don't talk that way. People don't really talk this way, although I also keep in mind that what we're doing,
hmm
by its very nature, we generally on this podcast manage to read a chapter
Yeah.
of something, and it takes us, 45 to 90 minutes to get through a chapter.
Mhm.
If I'm reading a book on my own, a chapter is like a 10 to 15 minute journey.
Right. Right.
So this really, like the format of what we're doing, absolutely makes things much more noticeable.
This feels like it's taking for fucking ever.
Yeah, I don't want to do anymore. I just don't.
I feel like I am in the midst of a bad trip.
Yeah. But yeah, the larger point that I was making about Catcher in the Rye, like this idea of like, yeah, man, everything is bullshit, man. Like fucking, we thought that school was going to be, it was like whatever, like everything cool was going to come after that. So many other better writers have explored those ideas.
And also, David, I fully understand what you're saying. However, every time you bring up this point, I'm going to hammer you to a cross, and the nails that I'm going to use to do it is going to be Something Wicked This Way Comes, where we read a chapter of that, and it was wonderful.
It's true. It's true. And, there are exceptions, but it also did take us like 90 minutes to read a chapter versus the 10 to 15 minutes that I can read it in my head.
Right. Because of these wild tangents that we go
Wild
on.
tangents and just the nature of reading something out loud taking longer.
I wish I read fast like you guys. I'm a slow reader.
Do you have an internal monologue, David, or do you just think ideas?
Both.
Okay.
Yeah, both. Depends on the situation, the moment, and like
Right.
I was just thinking about that earlier today, actually, that sometimes someone will say something and I will respond with something that seems completely out of the blue,
Mhm.
but it's because in the space of like less than a second,
You
my
went on a
brain
journey.
Mhm.
jumps from idea to idea to
I've done
idea,
that too,
and then
yeah.
suddenly I'm like, oh, this makes total sense based on what they were just saying.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Right. And sometimes I'll even do the opposite of that, where I'll just be having a conversation in my mind, and then I'll say like the conclusion or the
Oh, yeah.
like what developed from that out loud.
Oh, yeah.
With no
Out of
context.
just
Yeah.
finishing the conversation you were having with yourself
Mhm.
to another person.
Right.
It's always great.
We should get a new garage door opener. What the fuck?
Yeah, I would much rather talk about garage door openers than continue having to listen to this goddamn book.
Well, I think right now we're about to get to the point of the chapter here, and I think we've already figured out what it is, but, you know.
Mhm. I am interested in the bit where he goes to Alaska and becomes a
Right.
ram shaman.
Do you know exactly where that is, David?
No.
So then let's not worth the journey.
Well, let's finish this chapter.
Oh my God.
Yeah, sure.
You're a drug all your own. Josh sounded wistful. My favorite, I think. You're the only real friend I have, Sam said. That's not true. Tell me, Josh, your honest opinion. Is there any greatness in me? His voice lilted with doubt. You know the answer, Josh said. In his heart there was something that glowed like a gypsy's fire seen across the hills and mists of night burning in a wild land.
I know exactly what that looks like.
This is very pretentious.
Sam's voice brimmed with feeling. He's quoting
Rimmed.
here, by the way. These are quotes that Sam is doing.
Mm.
Sam's voice brimmed with feeling. Probably Blake.
Rimmed.
These are the gems of the human soul, the rubies and pearls of a lovesick eye, the countless gold of the aching heart, the martyr's groan and the lover's sigh. The corners of his mouth drew down and a softness circled his cheeks. I want to reach for something precious, to make whatever sacrifice
My
that
precious.
requires. It's also vague and grandiose. Purity of heart, poetry and daydreams. He gave Josh a helpless look. Nothing like a career or a job. Some people do that, Josh said. Do what? Follow a dream.
Do what?
Sam saw the ardor in his friend's eyes. Not a corporal dream, Josh said, of deeds or possessions. A dream of the soul, of the spirit.
I hate this.
I resonate with this. I don't think it's well written, but I understand the whole concept here. Like
the ideas, I mean, are valid, but the way they're being expressed is so head ass that I can't empathize with it.
Yeah, David, I know like the author is doing this conversation would have been much better suited for the bathroom with the girl that he had a weird connection with.
Well, this is his best friend.
Mm-hmm. And like if we were just like kind of high and like man, I just don't get it. Like I see that there should be like maybe.
He did say that they learned more on LSD than...
Right.
Yeah, but we're in the middle of a riot and they're just having this conversation.
Well, I mean, it's not even about that. It's just, I don't know, just this prose is so annoying to me.
Yeah, I hear you.
That it makes it hard to engage with its ideas.
I think this says a lot about the book, how we all dislike it, but we don't agree on the aspects that we dislike about it.
Right.
We all know it's bad. We can't say why. We just know that it is.
Then Kaine's just angry.
No.
Kaine is just the manifestation.
All right,
I'm
well,
not the
no, he's
manifestation of
bored.
anger. I'm the
Who pounds my
manifestation
butt?
of, get on with it. If we're going to finish this thing, then just do it.
I want to.
Then do it.
Well,
Then
I'm
do it.
trying. I got to be able
Stop
to read more
interrupting.
than a sentence
I know.
without people telling me how shitty this
All
thing
right,
that I'm reading is.
read it. Just read it.
Stop fighting!
Dear God, read it.
Sam nodded.
I'm sorry.
Josh yearned for some home for the aspirations he was about to set aside. Growing up means letting go of that, doesn't it? Not for everyone. I don't have a dream worth devoting my life to, Sam said. You might find one, Josh smiled. No bird soars too high if he soars with his own wings. Shouts came from a rooftop lined with students. A dozen Berkeley policemen hurried down the street, clubs in their fists. From the crowded sidewalk, hisses rose. "You're supposed to talk me down," Sam said. Josh shook his head. "You're unusual, Sam. You're at home in the void. It's too bad acid isn't legal. You'd have made it as a guide. I don't want the void. I don't want fantasies. I want something real. Not another fragment of truth to puzzle over the morning after an acid trip. I want to live in a new world, a true one of my own devising." Sam's features quickened, gaze turning inward. Inexhaustible desire at the service of a unique perception. That's what life should be. A journey of the mind and heart that gives birth to something like Hopkins' Inkscape or Macken's hieroglyphics. Germinating an idea like that, tending it, urging it to grow until it roots itself in you and takes you over, and your life becomes the proof of it. He raised the coiled magazine, extending his finger to touch the air. Something so concrete you can feel its edges a century later. Sam halted mid-stride. He stared at the magazine and unrolled it. Josh looked over his shoulder. "There's a picture of freedom," Sam said. The magazine cover was a window to a distant realm. Sam imagined he had stepped through it and was with the animal, standing on that small shelf, a scrap of green carpet without tree or brush, surrounded by rugged peaks. Pure white with black hooves, the ram bore a striking nobility, his golden horns curled nearly full around. "Look how high he is." Sam could feel the ram's exhilaration, his love of
Is
precarious
he having
altitude.
a furry awakening? Because I'm way more interested now.
The
Hush.
command of
Keep
vast
going, David.
terrain, the clarity of vast space. "What's this about?" Josh said. "I just grabbed—" Sam stopped, wondering. He'd seen the animal out of the corner of his eye. Had it been unconscious? Maybe he found me. He imagined the wild creature leaping from mountain to mountain, headed for the corner smoke shop. "There's wisdom in his eyes," Josh said. "He got some you to write her number on his chest." Sam nodded. "He lives on love. For him, sex is like rocket fuel." They laughed. Sam coiled the magazine and slid his free hand into his pant pocket. As they continued down the street, he drew his hand out and extended it. A pair of pink capsules rolled into Josh's palm. Josh examined the caps. "Christopher?" He had a grocery bag full of them. Josh put the caps in his pocket. "He's going off the deep end. Keep your distance." Sam
Do you
didn't
guys
reply.
think that if I took my little fidget toy that weighs no more than a pound, like if I tried really hard, do you think I could throw it through my window?
Yeah, if you threw it hard enough, yeah.
Yeah. Can we let David finish this so we can get away from this goddamn book?
A friend of Theo's just got sent to Lompoc. No future in that. Locked in a cage with psychopaths for 15 years. Speaking of which, his expression was apologetic. "What?" Julia called. Sam exhaled. When his sister couldn't reach him, she phoned Josh. "She said, I don't want to know." Sam's gaze returned to the crestline of the hills. "Their hearts are dead. Give them some of this acid," Josh patted his pocket. "That would change them." "It might," Sam nodded. "It might change you, too." Josh didn't reply. Sam regretted his words. "You'll be a great teacher, the kind we hoped we'd find." Josh shrugged. "I mean it," Sam said. "Been a while since we got high together. We had some good times." "We'll have more," Sam said. "Still taking acid alone?" Sam nodded. The corner ahead was crowded. A girl, naked to the waist, was handing flowers to the soldiers posted there. Josh peered at Sam. "Is our friendship going to survive the future?" "Of course."
Oh my god.
"Just checking." They reached the corner and gazed east, up Haste. There were guardsmen flanking the street entrance. Beyond, People's Park was visible, surrounded by a chain-link fence the military had erected 5 days earlier. They were using it as their headquarters, and there were tents and trucks and soldiers bivouacked inside. Josh glanced at the magazine in Sam's hand. "Who's Lindy?"
You guys mind if I imagine the vest girl as Sybil Danning?
"I don't mind that."
Yeah, I'm not going to police your thoughts.
Is that the end of the chapter?
That was the end of the chapter.
All right, fine. All right, great. This book was stupid.
Yeah, the first-hand accounts of the 60, like that stuff is very interesting to me because this person was there. It's just when there's long stretches of dialogue that I contemplate diving out my window and seeing if I can survive another 2-story fall.
Okay, so I may or may not have done a fair amount of psychedelics in my life.
Sure. In Minecraft.
Yeah, absolutely. For the movie.
Mhm.
But if you do a fair amount of psychedelics, it does kind of change your way of thinking about things.
Sure.
And I don't know, like, machine elves aside, there's something to be said for what he was talking about, the idea that a life shouldn't be about just grasping to earn.
Oh, yeah,
and it
there's
should be
absolutely
about,
value to that.
Yeah. And I understand the basic premise here, I think, fairly well, which is, at least as it's been displayed in the minimal amount of chapter that we read, or the one chapter that we read.
Uh-huh.
I think, okay, I am bored with my life and I do a lot of drugs, so I'm going to go live on a mountain in Alaska to become a ram, is a weird take.
It is. But it's an interesting take.
It is an interesting take, and I think the failing here for me was that I am this book's audience, for fuck's sake. Like,
Sure.
I hate the band Fish, but this was handed out at Fish shows.
Right.
It's handed out at college campuses. They're trying to get this book into the hands of me. And thanks, Joe.
Yeah, I mean, you own it now. Enjoy it.
Right, yeah. I'll never touch it again because I hate this fucking character.
Right.
This book was written for me, and I can't get into it because I don't like the main character at all. This is a dude who at like 20 was thinking of being a college professor and was obsessed with Blake and does a lot of LSD. This book was written for me.
Right, yeah.
Like,
I want to make a point here because, as we were saying, the whole philosophical discussions, unless you're an excellent author that knows what they're doing, don't open with that. It's fairly audacious to put that in chapter 1 of getting to know characters. Like, we might want to try to make your characters a little bit more human so people can relate to them.
Sure.
Before you put in your diatribes.
Well, I mean, and again, like, I want to be clear. Like, I've read On the Road. I've read Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance. I've read Catcher in the Rye. Like, all of which have similar ideas in, different pieces
just
and
done
parts
better
to what this book is trying to express. Yeah, just handled better. I'm not opposed to the content of this book. The story it's trying to tell has some value. But the way that it's written hurts me.
Yeah. There's a reason, I think, that it was handed out for free and has found itself to the shelves of every thrift store.
I wrote, because while David was going on and I had a lot of free time in my own head, I wrote a little story about the author. I'm not confident enough that it's true to make a declarative statement, but I like the story regardless. Little story that I wrote for the author is, so you're a guy who turns middle-aged and is, has that crisis of realizing that you're on the lesser half, like the declining half of your life. And the most life-affirming thing you've done was be a part of the hippie movement. And you can't get back to that epoch. And in desperation for validity.
Read Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas.
You write this book.
Because it expresses a lot of those ideas about the aftermath of the hippie movement.
Well, yeah, and you said this guy was a venture capitalist now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean...
There's some dovetailing there, for sure.
Definitely, if he was a hippie who, was part of the whole tune in, turn off, and drop out, or whatever, tune in, turn on, drop out idea, so many of those people, so fucking many of those people, that they're the fucking boomers,
Yeah.
They grew up, and they became completely obsessed with earning and stability and money.
Yeah.
And some of them became hardcore libertarians because sure, we can remake the world. We just have to have the power, and money is the power. So we have to get the money
right
so that we can remake everything. And it's fucking SLC punk. I didn't sell out. I bought in.
Right.
But it's sadly probably unavoidable. I don't know, man. I'm just over 40 and I'm already at a point where I'm looking back at my life like, what happened to that guy?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know though,
We grew
because
up.
like I've become honestly more revolutionary as I've gotten older.
Oh, certainly. Yeah, I mean, I've in many ways become much more, at least outspoken
Mhm.
about certain things, and I'm,
Yeah.
you know, I agree with that too. But I made this joke a while ago. You know, it's still relevant, but I never thought that I would be in my 40s driving a station wagon, working at a bank, married, and living in the suburbs.
Sure.
But here we are.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to define who you are, but so many people, I think, and this is a, you know, bigger conversation for sure, but we live in a society, man.
Mhm.
And part of that society is that it just wears you the fuck
Yeah.
down.
Yeah, I had a moment like that last summer where I was like, this is not the direction I expected my life to take when I was 20.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
That's the thing with life and planting your flag in any ideal or charging any hill to take it. The thing is that you can have those ideals, but you'll never stop getting older. Life won't stop changing. You won't stop gaining new perspectives. You know, it kind of ties back into the whole every 7 years, every cell in your body is replaced.
That's
That
true.
kind of thinking, like, you're never going to stay the same person. You're always going to be changing.
Yeah, the seasons of a person's lives.
Yeah.
Right.
Is my chicken soup already been made by someone else in a much better way?
No, I mean, I think you're very right.
Yeah, that's a
There's
very valid
a lot
point.
of wisdom.
Yeah.
I think also that kind of what this book was trying to drive at, and bigger part of the conversation, is that you have the option of either following the path that was laid out and is the, you know, quote, proper thing to do. You can just follow the guidelines for life. There are
Mhm.
lots of them. You go to school, you get out of school, you get a job, you live your career, you buy a house, you start a family, yada, yada, et cetera, et cetera. You can do those things. They're easy. They're right there.
Mhm.
That's what most people opt into doing.
Right.
Benefaction with
And that's how
between
you
the
build
system and
a
yourself.
society, which, joke or not, meme or not, we do, in fact,
Yeah.
you know, live in a society. So
Yeah.
we should probably take advantage of that and look out for each other. But the other option is what? To go live on a mountain and pretend to be a ram?
It's certainly an option.
Yeah, I mean, do what makes you happy. If you want to go and live on an island in Hawaii, go live on an island in Hawaii. It's really easy to be homeless there. Beyond that, just live your life. And if you're ever at a point where you feel like what you're doing is wrong, stop doing it, because it's not too late. You always have the choice to pick up and do some other thing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, don't ever feel like you're failing yourself or somebody else by either picking up a new ideal or laying it down. You know, like that's how you figure out who you are. You take bits and pieces from your experiences, the parts that you like. So try things. Just
Yeah.
do it.
I think we're mollusks, you know, in a way. We build up our shell, accreting our experiences around us, and then we decide that's what we are.
Sure.
And I think that's easy to fall into. You think that you're the shell, but you're really the fleshy bit on the inside, and you can always choose to leave and build something new. It's hard. It's
Mhm.
dangerous. It's
Mhm.
scary. And you might just fucking die, but what other choice do you have?
The furnace is always an option.
That's true.
That's-
the
yeah.
furnace is always an option.
I'm going to make a metal band and just call it the Furnace.
The future. This book italicized and capitalized, which is why I was reading it that way. Anytime they talked about the future.
Yeah. Are we done with this for now?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think we're done.
Well, I mean, I think I'm just done.
Yeah.
If one of you guys, I'm not going to. If one of you guys feels like scrubbing to the RAM part to see if there's anything
I'm not
funny
down with that.
there,
I'd be interested in having that conversation off the air. But for now, unless somebody else has something to add, if you got any enjoyment out of whatever the fuck just happened,
You are a wizard. Or you're just easily amused.
yeah. Or you're incredibly high.
Or all of the above.
Or you're an incredibly high, easily amused wizard.
In which case, call me.
Yeah, we should be friends.
get a call from fucking Radagast.
But yeah, if you enjoyed that, then don't forget to go to WeGiveYouBrainworms.com. You can support this stupid project that we do. And I'm really sorry about what just happened.
You should be.
I'm
I mean,
sorry.
that's all on you.
Yeah.
In fact, I think that I'm going to stop apologizing and just let Joe apologize, because this is all his fault.
Sweet Jesus, this is a long book. This has been a production of Brainworms Presents. Any copyrighted content contained within is used for purposes of review. Brainworms Podcast is David Combs, Kaine Magdalen, Christian Schaefer, and Joseph Wells. The theme music is Hodgepod No. 1 by Brian Davis. If you like what you heard, you can support us and learn about our other projects at WeGiveYouBrainworms.com or by leaving a review on your favorite listening app.